So it was released recently in the news that Battlefield 5 is around 85% behind Call of Duty Black Ops 4 in terms of pre-orders. Now obviously there's still a long while until the game releases, and a lot of people still purchase the game after the open beta and after they've seen extensive gameplay. Overall though, this statistic looks like an absolute disaster for DICE and EA. Now Battlefield 1 was of course the highest selling Battlefield game to date, and outsold both Call of Duty World War II and Infinite Warfare in terms of total sales, and although it did fail to keep hold of a large percentage of their player base, it was still a massive success. So if Battlefield 1 was so popular, why is Battlefield 5 looking like a massive disappointment? Firstly, the most obvious reason would be the strong backlash regarding the direction DICE has chosen to take, and the general outcry from anti-social justice warriors. Even if you don't mind some of the decisions that DICE has chosen to make, you still get a little bit unsure, a little bit uneasy about actually buying the game because you're not totally sure if the bad press is merited or not. The chosen theme is also something of a risky decision, mostly because nobody was really excited for a World War II game. Obviously World War II games have been hugely popular in the past and were some of the best selling games at the time, and for a while there was massive outcry for a game that was anything but futuristic. So when Battlefield 1 was announced, there was a lot of people that were incredibly excited to play a game that wasn't set in the future. Set in World War I, it was also a never before seen setting. And of course then after Battlefield 1 was released and Infinite Warfare was the Call of Duty game that came out the same year, Battlefield then gained the upper hand. So because there was this massive outcry for a game that wasn't futuristic, and now DICE has decided to come out with Battlefield 1, and Call of Duty of course still came out with Infinite Warfare, there was now a massive shift in the meta, and Battlefield suddenly had the upper hand. Now, however, Call of Duty seems to have the advantage once again. Most people seem content with returning to a modern shooter, going back to that sort of thing. Obviously, some people still wanted to avoid futuristic games, people like myself, but most people were interested in something that just wasn't another historical game, something new, something fresh, a really good, solid game. And if you include the fact that the latest COD game was actually World War II, Call of Duty was initially playing catch-up with Battlefield, going back to that historical setting, and then failing. But all of a sudden it seems like it's shifted, and that Battlefield is now playing catch-up. Essentially, Battlefield suddenly gained a massive market following by giving the players what they wanted, but they failed to keep hold of that by releasing a game that didn't build on anything, didn't give the players what they wanted, but instead just brought out another game. Now Battlefield 1 drew in a massive market share just based on the fact that it gave players exactly what they wanted, giving DICE the upper hand. Then, unfortunately, they couldn't keep hold of that because Battlefield 1 wasn't that good a game, and they didn't decide to go and make a new game that the community actually wanted, and instead made a World War II game which they were interested to return to. Similarly, in terms of competition, October is one of the most popular times to release a major game, mostly because of its proximity to Christmas and proximity to the winter holiday. Now this has been done for years, and every single year we see 3 or 4 major games that all come out in October, November time, and they all battle for the top spot, often why October is referred to as Bugtober. So this year we have Red Dead Redemption 2, COD Black Ops 4, Forza Horizon 4, and Battlefield 5 all releasing with around 20 days. Now obviously from that list, Battlefield and Forza are the smallest franchises, with Red Dead and COD being the biggest between the 4. There's still a possibility that Battlefield 5 is going to be delayed, or that Red Dead is going to be delayed, but at the moment it still stands that Battlefield doesn't really have much over either Black Ops 4 or Red Dead 2, and therefore is really going to lose out on a lot of sales. If you consider the general player sitting around thinking, I only have the money to buy one of these games for October this year and I'll get the other one on Christmas, they're probably looking at it going, Red Dead Redemption 2 looks great, it's going to have a long life, it's going to be really well made, and it's going to have a ton of content because that's what Rockstar do. You'll then look at Black Ops 4 and think, I like the gameplay looks awesome, they're adding new features, and it seems to be returning to the same Call of Duty fast-paced action. Then you look at Battlefield 5 and you think, I'm not sure what I actually like. Now this leads me into my next point. Personally, I think the biggest reason for the lack of hype behind Battlefield 5 is because overall, there's not a lot to be excited about. Now obviously there's new changes and improvements to the game, but in terms of marketing, DICE has done a really bad job of actually creating some buzz around the game. If we look back at some of the old games, Battlefield 3 was a huge step up in graphics, gameplay, and was able to draw in a massive following and a massive community just based on its focus on massive battlefields. Battlefield 4 built on the success of Battlefield 3, doing very similar stuff, but had an unbelievable amount of guns, gadgets and vehicles, and really just changed up everything, including mass destruction in the form of evolution. Now of course Levolution was used as the game's showpiece. It was the thing you saw in every trailer, and when you imagine them playing the game you can imagine that Levolution happening, and it was just awesome. Now Battlefield 1 was set in a never before seen environment, and that was unbelievably exciting to see, and obviously included a fantastic ad campaign, and as soon as you include a never before seen setting and an amazing ad campaign, you have a top selling game. And then if we take a look at Battlefield 5, we can see that it doesn't really have any of that. We only really know about one map. We've only definitely seen off one map. We've had trailers and stuff of a few maps, but in terms of actual gameplay coming out, there hasn't been a lot. We haven't had any in-detail information from DICE themselves either, just sort of brief trailers and stuff like that. And of course then, in terms of things just to be excited about, Tides of War looks pretty cool, and the lack of paid DLC is obviously a big draw, as well as the recently announced ray tracing from Nvidia. All this is pretty cool, but none of it is enticing to a new player. As a new player, you need something that gets you excited, something you can visualize, something like Levolution. You can imagine playing in Siege of Shanghai and having that building collapse. It's just so cool to see. And Battlefield 5 hasn't really shown us any of that. Obviously we've seen clips of tanks going through buildings and the destruction, we've had planes going over top and you power jumping out of planes, and that's all been cool, and obviously the first map included the destruction of Rotterdam Bridge, but Black Ops 4 has taken a big step in terms of making the game more tactical, but also bringing back memories of the old COD. It's done exactly what the community wanted it to do. Now, if you can imagine for a second that DICE had chosen to use D-Day or the Siege of Berlin as their main draw, just imagine watching that first trailer for Battlefield 5 when you just have people invading the beaches of Normandy. You have this epic trailer just showing off the entire landings, and then an open alpha is released on PC and the hype just builds. Then at Gamescom, DICE shows off the fall of Berlin with massive destructible environments. Maybe the Reichstag gets bombed in a set piece, or an entire building face is destroyed by artillery. And then once again, this would just add to the immense hype as people are just so excited to see these massive visual spectacles for themselves. They're watching it thinking, oh my god, I can't wait to finally invade Normandy in a brand new game, something immensely awesome. You've got 32 players versus 32 players, and it's just immense. And then of course the fall of Berlin, you can just imagine how cool that would be as well. But currently we have nothing like that shown off. The game has literally again showed us one map continuously through both of the closed alphas and most of the trailers, and we have had small snippets from other maps and stuff shown at Gamescom, but nothing really has come out that makes you go, that I'm excited for. There's small things that you go, I guess I'm excited for. The only thing that's come close to this is the collapse of the Rotterdam Bridge in the first trailer, but that wasn't really a focus of the trailer. It was more just one set piece within the trailer, and to be honest, that was a pretty awful trailer in the first place. Now I imagine a lot of people would buy the game just based on having one D-Day trailer. If DICE just released one and said, yes, in this game you can invade D-Day with a bunch of friends and have this immense battle, I think a lot of people would buy it just based on the possibility of experiencing something like that. So overall, Battlefield 5 still looks like a pretty good game, but an incredibly bad ads campaign headlined by a lack of one massive selling point, or at least one main draw, has meant that Battlefield 5 is currently trailing behind Call of Duty in terms of pre-order sales. I think along with the fact that it's releasing at a bad time of the year with two really strong games coming out, the general bad press about the decisions DICE has chosen to make, and of course the lack of one major selling point, has just meant that there's not a lot to be excited about in terms of Battlefield 5. But I want to hear what you guys think. I know DICE is planning to release DLC chronologically, so we will eventually see, or at least we will eventually hopefully see, D-Day and Berlin and the Tides of War, but it's a shame they decided not to take this direction by showing us this stuff. It also seems that they've decided to take not one, but two risks when being in the game. Rather than just giving us what we wanted, they've decided to do their own thing, which doesn't really work because you're not selling the game to yourself. Hopefully things do turn around. We still do have a while to go, and I imagine the open beta will do a lot for people who actually play the game and enjoy it. So tell me your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll be sure to check them out. Hopefully you guys did enjoy, and I'll see you on the next video.